Welcome, viewers. I want to welcome you both locally and internationally as you join me the next harvest, this program on Real TV, where we bring towards this agricultural awareness and information, clarification, making all the information known to you so that you can make the right choice and you can get yourselves involved in the agricultural sector here in Trinidad and Tobago. I welcome you to sit back, relax, grab something to eat, and stay tuned as we go through the next hour of critical information that will help you, give you the tools, give you the clarification to really make an informed decision and the data to drive your investment in agriculture as we go through right here in Trinidad and Tobago. As I've said, it's a pleasure for me to really join you. I am your host, Avinash Singh. I've spent some time, in the governance structure of Trinidad and Tobago as a parliamentary secretary for 5 years, as a minister in the Ministry of Agriculture for 5 years. But more importantly, my green thumb. I've never stopped being a farmer. I've never stopped being a producer. And I continue to enjoy, and I always say, a passion sometimes, it's a hobby, and when you are paid for that hobby, you really enjoy the work that you do. So I don't see it as a work or as a labor-intensive option. I see it as a very enjoyable exercise and a hobby which also pays at the end of the day. That is what agriculture has to be for you. You have to really turn agriculture into something that you like, and there's no better joy and pride in seeing the labor of your love bloom into crops, vegetable, root crops, and agro-processed items that consumers and people and citizens get to consume, get to eat, and give them that nourishment and give them that satisfaction that, hey, this was grown locally and I'm supporting local content and I'm playing my part in helping to contribute to the reduction of that food import bill that we all despise. Every country wants to bring their food import bill downwards and be able to eat more fresh, local, and sustainable and nutritious food. So the next harvest with Avinash Singh, as I said, it's a pleasure for me to join you in your homes, wherever you are, and be able to discuss what is available here in Trinidad and Tobago for you, the agricultural producer, where you can avail yourself to the benefits, the incentives, the subsidies, the grants, all of the regulations, the facilitating environment that the government has created for you to be involved in agriculture. And that is what I see my role and my function is, having served this country. And this country has been good to me. Trinidad and Tobago is a place that I hold dear, and I will not, be negative towards what this country can do for the upliftment of its citizens and what I can do to give back or to contribute. And that's what I'm saying, because all of the information you will be getting right here on the next harvest is information that you may very well have to pay a consultant for, because, and I'm not bashing consultants. I mean, they work hard, but all of this information I've been exposed to, I see it, as a necessity for me to bring some clarity, to bring this information to you, because I've seen how many times I meet farmers throughout this country, and they always say, well, I didn't know, I don't know how to, where can I access this incentive, that incentive. I didn't know a grant was available. I didn't know you can get back a rebate. All of these things that are available to you, the registered farmers, and the population, to avail yourself. So, over the last couple episodes, I took the time to really break down and go through in detail what I consider the regulations that guide the agricultural sectors in Trinidad and Tobago, that is the direct service, the direct goods and service available to you the farming population. And I spent some time in the overview of who are the entitled applicants that can make themselves available and eligible for some of these grants and subsidies and so on. But over the last couple of months, in this rainy season, we have seen quite a number of heavy downpours. And I can tell you, many farmers have reached out, and many farmers have experienced either flash flooding or flooding and destruction from the elements in terms of the rainfall and the floods that has really caused the agricultural projects to get set back or refocus their attention and their resources. So I'm here to spend a little bit of time in identifying what you can avail yourself. What happens? What do you do when you are flooded? When your crops are flooded, what is in it for you? And that is to say, once you are a registered farmer, which county you are operating in, there are 8 counties in Trinidad, and 4 in the north region, 4 in the south region. And when heavy downpour hits you, when rain falls to the extent of your crops being inundated with water, my advice, take precaution. Be cautious. Always pay attention to the relevant competent authority that issues bulletin and issues the rainfall schedule and the pattern, the Meteorological Society, the Met Office. All of these agencies, your regional corporations, your Ministry of Agriculture, ODPM, all these agencies give you information beforehand so that you can take precaution. You can move your equipment, you can move your produce. If you were planning to harvest next week and it's rainy forecast for tomorrow and thunder showers and storm and rain and whatnot, flooding, flash flooding, you can take some level of precaution, but let me face the reality. Not all farmers are luxurious in the position that they can take precaution and be cautious and harvest in time and all of that. Some farmers are just generally exposed to the element, and when it rains, it floods. And when it floods, farmers suffer thousands of dollars in losses and livelihood. But I want to say, avail yourself, registered farmers, avail yourself to the tools and mechanisms available from the state or the competent authority that manages the agricultural sector. So what happens when there's a flood? So if you have your plot and your plot gets flood, rain falls for 2 days straight and your crops are underwater, my advice, immediately take some photos, take some pictures of your crops, take some pictures of the damage done by floods, because you have a window of about 14 days to make a report to your county office about this disaster that has affected your farm. So your crops are underwater. Your crops are wiped out. Some cases, your crop is underwater for a couple hours. My advice, take pictures as evidence and proof, and if you can take dated pictures to save them, that is critical. Make yourself available and go down to your county officer once it is safe to do so, in terms of the time frame and the period of time that you have, the window, the 14-day window. Go down to your county office. There's a form to fill out. Make the information available to the officer in charge that is taking the information. What information you are required to give them will be your plot, the plot size, the location, your address, your telephone contact, what commodities you had growing, what stage of maturity this crop was. So for example, if you had sweet potato and your sweet potato was 3 months old it means your sweet potato was close to maturity. All right. In some cases, there's the local variety, Chickenfoot variety, which can go a little bit longer than 3 months or 4 months. But the stage at which your crop has been affected by flooding is important, because that is what will dictate the calculations by the ministry in terms of what kind of incentive or what kind of relief effort that the ministry can give. So, establish the protocol, take your photos of your farm when it is flooded, make your way available within that 14-day period window, go down to your county office, make the claim, give the officers the information, copies of your ID, your farmer's card, all of the relevant documentation that is required. Give them the information, and what will happen subsequent is the extension officer will contact you, and the officer will pay you a visit. And in some cases, sometimes the officer may come alone, sometimes the officer may come with a accompanying officer or a supervisor, and they will visit your plot. And they will do what is called a review and an assessment. They will go into the plot. Sometimes I know officers, they will come in with their tall boots and their fork, and they will go into the plot, and they will dig a couple roots of that sweet potato or cassava or whatever it is that you would have claimed that would have been flooded. They will go into the plot and they will, get real evidence of the damage from flooding. And subsequent to that, they will then assess the damage, the percentage of damage, the maturity of the crop at the time of damage, and they will go back to their office and they will make the necessary recommendations for a relief to be paid to you based on the agricultural damage they witnessed or they noticed. Of course, sometimes the day the officer is coming to your plot, the water may have subsided. That is why it was important to take the pictures of your crops that were underwater, just as your own evidence and your own file. Keep that information because it's important. Sometimes when the officer comes, in all fairness to the officer, they may not notice any flooding at the point when they arrive, because at that point in time, the crops, the water may have subsided, but the damage may have already been done. In the case of root crops, if root crop is flooded for too long, it stifles the root, it suffocates the plant, and it starts to cause root rot or decay of the ground provision that is below ground. So if the officer comes a few days after, he or she may not notice the damage. And critical information I'm about to issue to you all. We'll be right back. We will be right back after a short commercial break, and I'll go in depth in terms of what to do at that point in time. Stay tuned, and I'll be right back with you.
You're viewing Real TV. Thanks for choosing us.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
I'm Smith. Have you ever wondered what a man is thinking? Have you ever wondered why a man does what he does? Well, join us on our new show called A Man's Perspective, right here on Real TV on Mondays 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., where we discuss just that. The points, the clues to get into a man's mind, right here on Real TV, bringing reality to you.
Macon Construction Company Limited. Save big whilst building stronger. We build with our Macon innovative building systems, which provides high wind speed, earthquake, sea blast and fire resistance. Is thermally and acoustically insulated. Provides improved construction timelines and cost savings. We provide construction services from design to finish and everything in between. Macon Construction Company Limited. Building green today with tomorrow's technology. Contact or visit us today.
Get ready to party with a purpose. The GMVS Community Parent Support Group presents Party with a Purpose, the Cooler Fete. Fully AC activated and sailing aboard the Harbor Master on Friday, December 12th, 2025. Boarding starts at 7:30 p.m. We sail from 8 to 11 p.m. and it's just $250. Bring your cooler and your crew, but remember, no glass and no firearms. It's good vibes only as we party for a cause. Music by DJs Doll, Smalls, and Chunks, featuring Rihanna Gopal, Amit Suknanan, Rishi Singh, Suresh Miraj, the original Pumping in the Sandman, and Tracy D. For tickets, call Crystal at 379-9248. That's Party with a Purpose, the Cooler Fete. Cool vibes, warm hearts, and all for a good cause.
You're viewing Real TV, ultimate in programming. Thanks for choosing us.
Welcome back, viewers, and you are locked on right here on Real TV on The Next Harvest with Avinash Singh. Before we went our short commercial break, we were discussing the whole issue of flooding and the impacts on agricultural commodities and what can you do as a registered farmer in case you are exposed to flooding and your crops are inundated by water. Just a little recap. You have experienced flooding. You took precaution and it was not up to you. Mother Nature is a force to be reckoned with, and the level of rainfall that we got has caused your crop or your plot to be underwater. Take some photos as evidence, dated photos, create a little file and put those photos in that file. You have 14 days to make your way to the county office. You lodge a claim. There's a form that will be filled out by the officer at the county office. You give the relevant information, your location, your address, your telephone contact, your farmer's identification card, make sure it is valid, your identification card, make sure it is valid as well, and the information about the crop. So I was using the example of sweet potato. And in the case where sweet potato, the stage of maturity, what acreage that was used to make the claim, whether it is acres or hectares. Some people talk hectares, some people talk acres. 1 hectare is 2.2 acres for basic calculation. So you go to the county office and you make the information known to the officer recorded. You will then be contacted by the extension officer, and sometimes, as I said, the extension officer may come alone. The extension officer may come with a colleague, another extension officer or a supervisor or an agricultural officer to the community. They will go into the plot. They will assess the damage. They will assess the percentage loss via flooding. And I was making the point that on the time of arrival by the extension officer, the water may have subsided, so the officer may not come into a flooded plot, but the damage may have been done. And the damage in the case of root crops, sweet potato, yam, cassava, dasheen, edos, the water, once water is flooded, if the crop is flooded by water for too long, it causes the crop's root to stifle, the oxygen levels to be depleted. It causes decay, root rot, soft spots. All of these things will have an impact on your crop, on your root crop. So again, the officer comes to your plot, views your plot, makes his relevant recommendation to his superior and the offices, the head office and whatnot. And you can call the officer, you can contact your county officer to follow up in terms of the claim. Of course, it takes a little time for the processing of the payment, because sometimes the application has to go to the next level, which is the regional administration north or south office from the county office. So there's a little paper trail, and for accountability and transparency, the superior officer may want to double check the claim, may want to pay another visit. All of that is ordinary, all of that is okay. And sometimes, as I've said, when at the time of you making this claim, the officer came and did not see any water, and then 2 weeks after that visit, you go there and try to harvest what was left of this crop of sweet potato, and you realize at that point, all of your sweet potato is rotted or soft spots developed, and it's really damaged due to the rainfall and flooding. One option is available to you. My advice is to go back to your county officer and make another report to that officer that, hey, I would like you to come and do a review of your visit, because I'm harvesting now, or I'm trying to harvest what's left, and I realize the entire crop is lost. So let's just say the officer at the original site visit would have put down 20% loss due to flooding. He can now revisit that original recommendation to what the current situation might be, because now your entire crop is wiped out and it might be 99% damage. So if you were going to be paid 20% of the value of your crop based on the original site visit, now you can ask for a review to be done so that the more realistic approach can be taken. That is something I would advise you farmers to consider. Of course, it will be the whole process all over again. Officers will have to come back, review, look at the crops, ensure that it's really wiped out, and they will make a recommendation, and that recommendation will go towards the regional administration north or south head office, and then the recommendation then falls to the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries to process your claim of a flood relief check. The checks will be available upon releases being made and whatnot, the bureaucratic process and the whole transfer and allocation of funds. That is a process, and that takes some time, and then you will be contacted and you will get this flood relief compensation to at least help you to dust your feet, get back on your agricultural production. Sometimes it's not, don't look forward to a 100% payment for the crops, because sometimes it's a percentage of the value up to the maturity of your crop. But at least it is something, and a mechanism is there to assist you. Because some people talk and ask about crop insurance, and why is there no crop insurance for farmers? That is a conversation that I have seen happen in almost every CARICOM meeting I've been to, in almost every international forum that dealt with farming issues. And let's face the reality, many companies, or the insurance companies, looks at agriculture as one of the most high-risk industries. And therefore, they are a little bit hesitant to create a package of insurance for farmers, because in one day, your entire crop could be wiped out, and the insurance company will be called to pay compensation. So I don't think any company is set up to make a loss or to lose. But I want to say, I would really invite the government or the competent authorities to explore all possible means to ensure that the risk is reduced to our farming population when natural disaster strikes. In fact, countries can take out insurance policies And there's one that the country took out, the catastrophic risk insurance agency, something like that. And every time, countries receive a certain rainfall above a certain limit, the insurance kicks in and the country is paid. A premium, a payment is made, which then goes to the various arms of state for distribution in whatever means possible. Likewise, I know we were talking about a revolving fund. At some point in time in the past, we were speaking about a revolving fund where, and this is something I think we can look into to help farmers in the future, where we can use one of the state assets and the state agencies, for example, the Agricultural Development Bank, put in a revolving fund where farmers can make a contribution. It's almost just like a pension plan, where persons are paying a contribution. So the employer pays a percentage and the employee pays a percentage of the premiums. And this insurance plan kicks in upon retirement of the employee, and then you are paid a pension. Similarly, if we were to get something like that in place for our agricultural sector, a revolving fund paid into an agency like Agricultural Development Bank, and farmers can go in and pay into the system like a premium, then I think, it will be a stronger option for the government authority to negotiate with insurance companies to make a package of a product available, unique for us here in Trinidad and Tobago, to be able to assist our farmers in terms of benefiting from crop insurance. Because that is something we would really like to see in the near future, because climate change is real. Farmers are going through a lot of disaster. Farmers are going through a lot of risk, high capital investments, and it's really heartbreaking to see you put out all this effort into building your model, building your production facility. Rains come, floods come, and it's completely wiped out. So these are some of the things, that as a people we need to start discussing, and as a people we would like to see conversations centered around bringing some relief to our farmers. Of course, we are thankful that under the Ministry of Agriculture there is the flood relief program, and only registered farmers are able to benefit from that. And that is another conversation about unregistered farmers, because there are thousands of farmers who are not registered in the formal sense of having a farmer's identification card, but they are doing good agriculture, they are producing food, and for various reasons they can't register to get a card. But stick a little pin, we will return after this commercial break, and when we return we'll go into some of the details in terms of how we can make this a little bit better for our farmers. Stay tuned.
You're viewing Real TV. Thanks for choosing us.
Hi, I'm Naka, introducing to you Bridging the Gap, where we touch on the news, discuss social issues and current affairs with a twist. Every Monday to Friday in real time, right here on Real TV.
Hi, I'm Zalisa Budu Singh Rupani, and I'm inviting you to join me for Conversations with Zalisa right here on Real TV. It's not just another talk show, it's a space for real stories, real insight, and real impact. We cover it all: health, law, parenting, relationships, drug and substance abuse, mental health, social issues, and so much more, with expert guests who help bring clarity to life's most important questions. So whether you're looking to be informed, empowered, or simply inspired, this show is for you. Weekdays at 10 a.m. with repeats on Real TV.
When security matters most, choose Catch Security Services Limited. We are proudly approved by the Ministry of Homeland Security. We protect your home, business, community, and much more. Our services include professional baton and armed officers, specialized K-9 units, mobile patrols, secure cash pickups, secure transport, and pepper spray applications and supply coming soon. Don't wait. Secure your assets now. Contact Catch Security today. Call 622-6601, email info@cssl-tt.com, or visit our office at 30-32 Saddle Road, Maraval.
You're viewing Real TV. Thanks for choosing us.
Welcome back to the next harvest. And before we took a short commercial break, we were discussing flood relief compensation here in Trinidad and Tobago and what is available to our farmers when natural disaster strikes and your crops are inundated with water and you suffer huge losses from flooding. And while I was talking about what we can look forward to or what we can start discussing with the government and the competent agencies about putting a crop insurance in place and putting something like a revolving fund in one of the state agencies like the Agricultural Development Bank, where the state can make a contribution and then farmers can individually make a premium payment towards the fund. And of course, the fund will be accessible by those farmers who have made contributions to be able to almost replicate an insurance model. And then I also mentioned the state asset in terms of resources being put in place for a flood relief compensation that is implemented by the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. Of course, this is only for registered farmers, and that is what we were talking about farmers that are not formalized in the ministry structure to be called a registered farmer, and how can these persons benefit as well. And this is something I would want to invite the government to explore, because it has raised its head a number of times throughout the last decade or so about persons benefiting from the sector and persons that are farmers. They may not be a registered farmer, but they are producing food and they would want to also benefit from the incentives and subsidies. So I remember back in 2011, there was a process of delinking land tenure with incentives. And that project would have looked at different categories of farmers on different land portfolios. So persons whose leases would have expired and requested renewal, they would be considered. Occupants of state land whose leases were being processed, persons who had cabinet approval, persons whose deceased foreparents held a lease, and who was awaiting settlement of the estate and the next of kin. So, mind you, all of these categories that were available, then you also had two other areas where farmers who would have been eligible for regularization based on cabinet decisions prior to February 25th, 1999. And then the most interesting category was occupants whose plots were well cultivated and have occupied state lands for over 5 years. So, if you were planting a plot of land for over 5 years, and this is verified by the competent ministry or agencies, then you was able to register as a food producer or as a farmer and be able to access incentives and subsidies. So I'm not sure if this is still the policy that exists. I'm not sure if this is a policy that farmers can continue to avail themselves to. But that is important because most farmers you talk to will tell you, well, I am not a registered farmer and I cannot access or I cannot benefit from any of the incentives and subsidies that you are spending all this time talking about. And that is true. That is factual. Many farmers cannot access incentives and subsidies because the regulations and the way the regulations were written and negotiated, it's for registered farmers, farmers who have their land tenure in order and farmers who have their farmer's card and all of the documentation to support. Of course, we were tying that back to flood relief and flood compensation, which is also accessible and eligible to farmers who are registered. So I am waiting with bated breath. I'm waiting to see what the government will do to bring this problem, this challenge that has cut across all governments to fruition, whereby we can find an ideal model that will also incorporate farmers who are registered and farmers who are not registered, because it's heartbreaking when two farmers are cultivating the same area. One gets flood and is able to get flood relief compensation, and the one next door doesn't have a farmer's card, also gets flood and is not able to receive compensation or flood relief. I mean, I saw that firsthand in the Arangways area during the 2018 period of flooding, where a lot of farmers, reached out, and it was unfortunate that the system and the regulations did not allow for registered farmers that are not, it did not allow for non-registered farmers to access flood relief, and therefore those farmers really, were brutally affected, and it was unfortunate that they could not have been compensated under the regulation that existed. So that is something I would like to see, reviewed, and consultations take place in terms of how we can develop the right model for implementation of all of what the government offers to its citizens where food production is concerned. So flood relief compensation, it's something that is available to registered farmers, and you are paid a percentage of the value in terms of your crop. The government continues to have their criteria and their calculation, their formula, how they calculate and whatnot. They are guided by policy and cabinet decisions in the past, and that continues. So I've also seen in cases where fishermen actually lose their gear and their boat and their nets and so on are also taken into consideration in the past, and these persons have been paid a relief or a compensation in the past. One area that I really found to be inadequate and a very huge gap is in the area of livestock, where relief is offered to livestock farmers. In my time, I've not seen a single implementation because of the regulations that were put on black and white being implementable. So whereas in crop farming, vegetable production, farmers can avail themselves of that. I mean, it's unfortunate that livestock farmers, poultry farmers, cattle, goat, sheep, rabbit, all of these areas, while it is there in black and white, has not been able to really be implemented for various reasons. The regulations speak to an animal registry. And what is the animal registry? That is really the mechanism in place where the state is able to monitor what animal or what flock or herd you, the registered farmer, has on your establishment. So let us break it down into a realistic example. Let's say you're a farmer in Blanchisseuse, and you get flood. You have a poultry farm, and you have 10,000 birds, and you get flood. In cases of flood where poultry is concerned, a lot of times poultries are washed away. Poultries drown and die and end up in river courses and water courses. And let's also be realistic in the sense that when you make a claim, or if you make a claim, chances are the extension officer is not coming on the day of the flood or maybe the day after. They might come a week after. You as a citizen, you will not want to have dead carcasses of animal, poultry, cattle, sheep, pig, lying around waiting to be assessed by the ministry's extension team. That is a health hazard. That is an environmental catastrophe to have carcasses lying around to be assessed by persons coming to view. And I think that is what the animal registry would have tried to prevent, because in a registration or re-registration exercise, whatever animal you have on your farm, the ministry will have a record of that. So let's say you had that record of 10,000 birds when you made a claim for an incentive a couple months ago before the flood. The ministry's record will have you, Farmer John Doe, as having 10,000 birds on your farm. And let's say you got flooded after, and the extension officers come after, and now they are only seeing 5,000 birds. So which means 5,000 of those birds, died or got washed away or got flooded and what have you. Then easily the transparency and accountability equation could be applied, and you could be compensated. Of course, we do not have an animal registry, and that is something that I would like to see being developed for our agricultural sector, animal registries, so that we will know at any one point in time how much poultry is down on the ground, how much cattle, how much goat, how much sheep is available, what the breeds are in terms of the cycle of production, and all of these different assets would be available for. So we have to take a little commercial break now, and when we return, we'll continue this discussion about animal registry and how important that will be for flood compensation to our livestock farmers. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
You're viewing Real TV, ultimate in programming. Thanks for choosing us.
Welcome to the Power Play, the most exciting period in sport. Join us every Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. as we bring to you all things sport. We break down football, cricket, basketball, all the latest sports in the Caribbean and of course across the world. Right here on Real TV, your station for local sport. Real to the heart, local to the core.
Get ready to party with a purpose. The GMVS Community Parent Support Group presents Party with a Purpose, the Cooler Fete, fully AC activated and sailing aboard the Harbor Master on Friday, December 12th, 2025. Boarding starts at 7:30 p.m. We sail from 8 to 11 p.m. and it's just $250. Bring your cooler and your crew, but remember, no glass and no firearms. It's good vibes only as we party for a cause. Music by DJs Doll, Smalls, and Chunks, featuring Rihanna Gopal, Amit Suknanan, Rishi Singh, Suresh Miraj, the original Pumping in the Sandman, and Tracy D. For tickets, call Crystal at 379-9248. That's Party with a Purpose, the Cooler Fete. Cool vibes, warm hearts, and all for a good cause.
When security matters most, choose Catch Security Services Limited. We are proudly approved by the Ministry of Homeland Security. We protect your home, business, community, and much more. Our services include professional baton and armed officers, specialized K-9 units, mobile patrols, secure cash pickups, secure transport, and pepper spray applications and supply coming soon. Don't wait. Secure your assets now. Contact Catch Security today. Call 622-6601, email info@cssl-tt.com, or visit our office at 30-32 Saddle Road, Maraval.
Welcome back, viewers. And before we went to a short commercial break, we were talking about animal registry, flood relief compensation, and how we can tie these different regulatory apparatus together so that our farmers can look forward to, a productive agricultural sector. One that really appreciates farmers and, puts mechanism in place for relief when natural disaster strikes. As you all are aware, we are in the rainy season, and, there are cases where farmers do lose livestock, but unfortunately, regulations, the way it is written, does not allow for proper compensation to be discussed and to be paid and all of that. And I'm just really, expounding in terms of some of what I have seen around the CARICOM region internationally, and what we can put in place to help our livestock farmers. So the livestock registry, in my opinion, will help. It will help implement the flood relief compensation towards farmers. So if you are a farmer, again, doing cattle, goat, or sheep, and every time you are interacting with the ministry extension division for incentive, a subsidy, renewal of your farmer's badge, all of these things, the ministry generates data. So every time you interact with the ministry, data is captured. And this data now will form part of the information gathering for decision making by the policymakers. So in the case of flood relief for livestock farmers, I would like to see the animal registry being materialized. Why? Because this is important in implementing flood relief compensation to farmers. Not only that, it will also be able to assist us here in Trinidad and Tobago monitor and police the livestock industry, because you always hear rumors, and sometimes it is not rumors. I have seen it with my own eyes while in office. The number of animals that have to be euthanized, the number of animals appear on our shores from various sources that are not bona fide. And you run the risk of bringing in animals that are exposed to foot and mouth, that are exposed to zoonotic diseases that can spread in humans, that are life-threatening, that can, wipe out other neighboring or fence-line communities where these infected animals are brought in and kept. The animal registry is something that I think will help regulate the industry and assist in keeping a track on what is available, where it is available. Because if you go to a farm, and today you went to a farm and you saw 20 female cattle and one breeding bull, then next year when you go back, around the gestation period of cattle, when you go back next year, chances are that those 20 female cattle would have given birth to at least one calf, and therefore multiplication or reproduction happens on that farm, where you can almost predict what number of animal you can expect when you go back for a site visit. But if when you go back next year, you are seeing 100 calf, or you are seeing 20 other animals that didn't grow in that 1 year period, then to ask the questions, well, where these animals came from? What is the source of that animal? Let me know which farm did you purchase it from. Let me see your receipts. Let me visit that farm that you claim to purchase that animal from. Let me verify the information. And therefore you will have a check and balance. So if farmers are getting animal from questionable sources, you can pick up on that. It will raise red flags. And these are some of the things, apart from offering flood relief compensation to livestock farmers, it can assist in policing the livestock industry, thereby reducing the risk of importing illegal animal with pest, disease, foot and mouth, rabies, unis, all these diseases that can come into our country. Many might be zoonotic, that can go from animal to human, that can cause problems. These are some of the things you can really build in your enforcement or your monitoring and evaluation mechanisms of the ministry in terms of record keeping data that will help you manage your agricultural sector, manage farms, and ensure people are operating within the law. Because I've seen, and you've noticed in recent times, all of these scares about avian influenza, the PRRS disease, the porcelain reproductive disease in pigs, foot and mouth in goat and sheep, all of these rabies in dogs, all of these risks and challenges that are available and real threats towards our livestock industry can have devastating impact on farms, farmers, and our farmers' livelihood. And these are some of the things, we have to start discussing. These are some of the things that we have to start, looking at. And while it is all well and good for governments to come in and, remove VAT and remove duty from inputs in agriculture, I welcome that. I mean, I remember working on a working document with the technical staff at the ministry in going through all of the customs and excise laws and the VAT laws, regulation and so on, to try to pull out all where inputs were mentioned for agricultural sector, pull out those line items, create a working document that was made available to the Ministry of Finance to view and look at and interpret in terms of reducing or removing VAT and duty on agricultural inputs, machine, equipment, and so on. Especially for things that, are brand new technology or evolving technologies. So greenhouses, shade houses, hydroponic, aquaculture, aeroponic, drip irrigation, LED technology, container farms, advanced processing equipment, lab equipment for tissue culture, all of these areas that aid and support the agricultural sector. I welcome the removal of VAT and duty in these areas that will really benefit the farmers who, in a sense, will be able to pass down those savings to the consumers. Because once a farmer gets input or, machinery, equipment, infrastructure reasonable, he will be able to expand, multiply, put down more crops and really benefit the agricultural sector and the agricultural economy. So I always welcome consultation, and I will always welcome farmers coming together, because when you look at some of the most successful models of agriculture, cooperatives, I don't know why cooperatives never really, kick off in Trinidad and Tobago and is not really the preferred choice of agricultural production. But when you look at many countries in the world, agricultural cooperatives are really the driving force of expansion. It is the driving force of accessing greater markets, better prices, higher investment, capital investment, all of these areas. It's something we can talk about on the next harvest. And like I say, the next harvest is dynamic, it's evolving, it's technology driven, it's innovation, it's areas where, many persons would want, especially the young people, many young persons I know would want to get into agriculture, but they have this fear that agriculture is hard work, it's for old people, it's to get your hands dirty. For the ladies, you can't have nice long nails, and all of these areas. Agriculture now has grown significantly from traditions to technology, and I would want to, in the new year, I would want to take you out and show you where agriculture is in Trinidad and Tobago in the 21st century. Take you to all of the new technologies and models that are available. Show you, especially you, the young people who are looking on, to show you that agriculture, there is a future for you in all the different subsects of agriculture, and you could get involved at any step of the way, whether it is primary production, whether it is agro-processing, whether it is marketing, whether it is import, export of inputs, all of those areas, supply chain logistics, project management, scientific research, all of these areas that are linked to the agricultural sector. Of course, it's my pleasure to be here with you, sharing this information, sharing the insights, sharing, this clarification of what the state has put in place and will continue to put in place for you. And we will discuss those areas of collaboration, and we will discuss those areas for you farmers to benefit. But I'm sorry we are out of time on this episode, and we will pick off where we left off here today on our next program. And do look forward to joining you on Wednesday at 9 a.m. right here on Real TV with the next harvest. I am your host, Avinash Singh. May God continue to bless you. Happy farming, and see you on the next one. Take care.